Hey, John.
Good evening, Eric. Welcome to Mostly Security.
We're back.
We're back, episode number 38. Doing pretty good. I don't even remember if we've skipped a week since we started posting them. So keep it up.
Yeah, don't jinx it.
Oh, whoops! I'm jinxing it. There we go. There we go. Well, I want to thank you for editing the podcast while you were not while you were driving. That would be quite the feat, and please don't. While somebody else was driving the car last week.
Yeah. 700 miles in a car taking your kid out to college will, you got to stay busy somehow. And the battery lasted long enough to edit the whole podcast. Although I couldn't tell about road noise. Well, I mean, with the road noise, I couldn't really tell, about any background noise to hack out or not.
Right,
So I had
right.
to finish it once we arrived. But
Ah,
the hard part was chopping out the ums and the hold on while I walk away for a second.
right. Yep.
Yeah.
Well, that was impressive. I would have volunteered if I hadn't been driving myself, but I actually had to drive. So
Yep.
I took my younger boy. My older boy's got a broken ankle, so he didn't come out to the beach with us. But I took my younger son and one of his friends out to the Kite Festival out in Long Beach, Washington, for the weekend, which
Fun.
was fun. Yep, it was great. That's a fun event every year, and it's kind of funny. We just sort of stumbled on it a few years ago and enjoyed it so much that we keep going back every year. And I have not to date. I won't promise for next year, but I have not to date gone out and bought a few $100 kite, because every year I'm like, man, those things are so cool. I should get one. And then the rational
Well,
part of me kicks in and goes, all right, you really, really, really do not need a 2 meter kite.
do you have another kite that you take, or you don't have kites at all?
Oh, we have like those Costco kites that
Right.
like a dragon and a pterodactyl, and they have a kite making there, which is
Right.
cool. But no, they've got nice, really cool kites that people fly. You should check it out sometime. They're called quad lines. So there's 4 lines going up to the kite, and
Right.
they can totally control them. And they do it in groups of 3, 4, or towards the end, I think that they were just playing around, but they were doing 12 people all at the same time doing patterns with the kites. It's amazing.
Wow.
It's amazing.
Yeah. I think I've seen some YouTubes on that in the past.
Yep. Yep.
So very cool.
Those are cool. So you made it home safely.
Yes. Dropped her off for sophomore year of college. She's living off campus now. And this week she's job hunting. So fingers crossed that goes well for her. And then she starts next Monday. And the other kids have started school here. So we're getting back into the time of year, that 9 months of routine. Looking forward to the chaos of summer already.
2 days into
That's right.
having school started. Well, my kids don't start school till next week, so that'll be interesting trying to wake them up that early. Given that we're trying to warm up or cool down to the morning wake ups this week, so it's kind of ratcheting it back
Right.
by 15 minutes a day. And anyway, it doesn't mean that I was gonna say Monday. I guess it's Tuesday will be any
Right.
easier. Anyway, we'll see.
Awesome.
Yep. So, what you got for me for a topic this week?
So my topic is actually not necessarily security related, but as I read through the article, I thought it was kind of a fun article, and you can relate it to security. So,
Okay.
and I'm going to have a hard time reading a lot of the article because it's The title is Life on the Internet is Hard When Your Last Name is Butts. So it came to light when a writer for a sports website tried to register to another website for something for high school sports, to do some reporting on high school sports. And her name happens to be Natalie Weiner. And it rejected her attempt to create an account because it said offensive language was discovered in the last name field. Right.
Poor.
So just unfortunate. And she posted this on Twitter, and a bunch of other people said, I get this a lot, surprisingly. A young man named, or I don't know if he's young, but a guy named Kyle Middick, James Butts said, I know all about these problems. Matt Cummings says, I've got it too. And there's some, I won't read the other names because they're
yeah, exactly.
a little bit harder to verbally say, and then that's not somebody's name. Anyways, but one guy who had said, yeah, they had to create, the IT had to create a rule on the email server to stop my emails from being rejected as porn spam.
Oh, brutal.
Just unfortunately for his name.
Oh, brutal.
But I thought this was interesting because there is actually a name that computer scientists had given this name, and it was because of an issue that arose in the mid-90s. There was a town in the 90s that nobody in that town could register for AOL. So this is 1996. One of the the big ISPs at the time to get internet access was AOL, and an entire town in the UK north of London couldn't, because the name of the town was or is Scunthorpe. Now you have to spell that to see what word might be actually in that, why it was rejected. And so when they contacted AOL, AOL said, well, we're trying to filter out offensive words and, not have people register names and other things. And okay, I get what you're trying to do. But AOL's solution for the problem was to basically rename the town in their system as Sconthorpe instead of Scunthorpe.
Oh my gosh.
So anyways, I bring this up, and there's some other funny notes about, the context matters. Certain words in certain contexts are harmless, and you would even use them in, children's settings. If they've got a father or a brother or an uncle named Dick, that's one scenario where it's completely harmless, but other scenarios where the parents or someone might not want them to use those. And so I think
doing it on a substring is, yeah.
And so how I thought, well, maybe I relate this to security, because I like I said, I thought it was a fun article and kind of gets your brain thinking about what types of problems software is trying to solve. This happens to be just a case of trying to, limit offensive words, but it could be anything. And so when you're trying to come up with an algorithm to solve problems, it's not as simple as, just doing string pattern matching or substring pattern matching to try to find things, or simply looking at the problem from a very simple perspective or the obvious perspective, because context is what matters. And I think if you want to relate this to security, you think this is an example, I think, of the place the hackers like to play in. That's where they're looking to exploit, right? Is where are those edges, or what are those boundaries? What were they trying to guard against, and how can I abuse that and maybe get around it, or, sneak in, because you're kind of, as a developer, maybe doing a little hoop jumping to get something to behave in kind of the obvious way or the simple use case way, and not necessarily thinking of all the various contexts that you can that a certain scenario might end up in. And that's how we end up with bugs that have been in code for years that nobody's found until someone exploits it, or huge bugs. Like I think I just saw earlier, there's yet another Apache struts issue that I think the headline I saw said, larger than the experience. Equifax, yeah. Larger than the Equifax issue. So bugs are always going to be there, no matter what code you write, no matter what your best intentions are. there's going to be stuff that's going to be broken somewhere or going to be exploitable, because whatever problem you're trying to solve for, there's going to be a legitimate case, or there's possibly a legitimate case that someone is going to be blocked from doing what they expect to do because of what you've coded up. Right.
And that's how you wind up with special cases on top of special cases and top of special cases. And really it's often there where, the simple solution is probably the most quote unquote bulletproof, but it, when that has boundaries, you put in an edge case, you code for the edge case, and then, now there's edge cases to the edge cases. And that's where, often things come in. It is always on the margins.
Yep. So not a big one, not a big deep security topic, but I thought it was just a fun article. And when you're thinking about how security works, or thinking about why the heck did that bug happen, or boy, that sure seems like those developers were not paying attention, or stupid developers, I'm cursing them because they have this bug that was exploited.
How could they not have thought of this?
Yeah. Here's maybe a very simple explanation as to maybe that's why they did.
Or maybe they did, and maybe they tried, and then it broke, and so they couldn't do that, and then they ran out of time. And
well, that's the flip side of it, is at some point you have to ship software and have somebody pay for it because you would like to take your daughter to college.
Yeah, no, there's always, just as a developer, there's I guess it's the artist too that is never done. I remember I saw I don't know, I think it was on one of those like Sunday morning programs or something like that, where they were interviewing an artist, and they asked him, how does he know when something's done? And it was, when his children or his assistants wouldn't let him work on it anymore.
Yeah, I think I remember that one.
That was great. But yeah, it's the same sort of thing with code. And on the flip side, sometimes you have an incredibly limited amount of time, either because of pressure that something in the field is breaking, you have to get something out, or it's a last minute bug that's found, and you have a due date, a hard date that you have to meet. And so, it's always the case that you need to find a way to get, the maybe patient triaged, in a hospital sense. What do you do to keep the patient alive, keep the app working, keep the software running? And I know, and I know you have too. I know I've in the past had, this is how I'd like to do it, but it would take me a couple of weeks, or, here's a hack. I can do it in a day, but these are the limitations, but this is the time frame.
Yeah. And the context matters as well in what you're actually trying to build. If you're building airline systems or autonomous driving systems, that needs to be held to a higher account than maybe someone building, a 99-cent app on, a phone. So you're more likely to take those shortcuts.
Right.
And hopefully you're not taking shortcuts when you're working
Well,
on other
in
such things.
in all programs, but certainly in the security industry, and I've been a developer in the security industry for a long time. There are areas where you can't compromise.
Right.
Things like, in fact, having some conversations related to authentication, authorization. Not too long ago, and that's the sort of stuff that it has to be right, has to be bulletproof, without which, you'll have data loss or data leakage. That is not worth shipping. No, there's no, no pressure on earth that should make you knowingly release software that has a vulnerability that, in those ways, but particularly as a security, quote unquote, professional, if you're a security company, we know better. So, but yeah, it's the boundaries that matter. It's the special cases, and there's a special word for what happens when you hack something together instead of, quote unquote, doing it right, and that's technical debt, right?
Yeah.
Basically putting.
Or I think I will now refer to that as the scunthrope problem.
Right. Although I heard or read something. I don't want to pay off my technical debt. I just want to refinance it.
I think that's what most people do anyways.
Exactly. Yeah, that's funny. Well, the story that I feel a little bad because I feel like maybe I'll be promoting unfactual information here in this story, but it was the best story I read this past weekend, and I literally was kind of sitting watching the kites and browsing Twitter and I think kids had gone down to the water line or something like that, and I'm reading about I'm reading about Tesla. So
right.
This is some posts by a random person on the internet in a computer funny forum, and who knows if they're correct. It kind of flew through a lot of the sites that I follow, or I saw it on numerous occasions, and this past weekend. But this was crazy sauce. So anyway, I will have a link to a thread that has a whole bunch of posts, a whole bunch of snapshots at least out of the post, but I just gotta go to the top one here. So here's the just the first bit of this. So I used to work for Tesla writing infotainment firmware and back-end services, all of which run in a single bottom tier data center in a single location on the worst VMware deployment known to man. Which, okay. So no multi-region support, maybe their disaster recovery is, cold restore elsewhere. Who knows? Yikes. But a fun fact, a Jenkins pipeline once caused almost the entire fleet to reboot loop for about an hour, which... I'm sorry. What? So anyway, so there's the next post in that is somebody saying, I want, and then striked it out saying, I need to know more. So this guy has a whole bunch more data here, and he's like, oh, well, the Model S and X use OpenVPN to talk to their backend. So good that it's an encrypted connection. All right.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure that in fact, there are some posts later on down here. We probably won't wind up talking to these, but they provision keys and stuff like that to the cars as they're on the line But on the back end, there are metadata services that feed to the system. One of those being a 20 megabyte JSON file that describes that describes supercharger stuff for the map. So, okay, that's kind of big. You're pushing that out to all the cars in the fleet periodically, or hopefully you're doing maybe some diffs, or I don't know. Anyway, somebody was smart enough to do automated linting. So a lint is a program that will help check the syntax. So presumably, after the file is generated, they will lint it to make sure that it is valid JSON. But the next sentence is, somebody was smart enough to do automated linting, but forgot to validate against the custom parser the car runs.
Oh, so custom
here
JSON
we go.
parsers.
Yes, exactly. You went right there because of last week too, right? And maybe this will be the perpetual thread of, yes, what should you do? You should write your own stuff. Always, yes. Write your own HTTP server. Write your own encryption. Write your own hash function. Write your own, what was it last week? JPEG parser.
Right.
Yes. So they forgot to validate against the custom parser in the car, which caused a seg fault in the Qt app that runs the UI. Okay, so a seg fault is a segmentation fault. That's what happens when you try to execute an invalid piece of memory or overrun something, and the Qt is a UI windowing library for Linux. So there's info there that is interesting, just in sort of what's behind that big touch screen in the middle of the Model S and X, which in turn, for a variety of reasons, forces a reboot of that component. I think we clocked about 15 seconds before it read the file and faulted after boot. It was doing that for an hour before everyone panicked and got me and QA on the phone to fix it. I wrote a quick Python/Fabric script that SSH'd to as many cars as possible at a time to RM the file.
So the thing that...
my God.
So when I read that, the first thing I think of is they can SSH stuff directly to my car. I assume I opted in as an owner. I get if you're running a server farm, or like you're hosting somebody kind of hosting a bunch of web servers out there, and you find a bug, and so you go and deploy a patch to all those web servers and you screw something up, so you have to redeploy a really fast patch. This is deploying stuff to the thing I may be driving down the road at the time. Maybe. I don't know. I know nothing about Teslas.
I don't know how and when they do their... I don't have a Tesla. Although, I am friend adjacent to a few people that have Teslas, but, I presume that they choose when they'll do an update when you're not driving. I have to imagine that. I haven't read anything about that, but, yeah, you're right about the number one thing. You can SSH to any car out there.
As you mentioned earlier about, as a security guy, you need to get the authentication and the access things right. Those have to be bulletproof. I sure hope those are bulletproof.
Yeah.
All these little fun facts, they're kind of in little snippets, are quite entertaining.
So... yeah, he's writing a pic. So I can totally see that. I mean, this is the other thing. And the reason why, even if this story itself is not true, which, I mean, just pretend this isn't true, that there are a million stories that are true of, when AWS has an outage. And, they had a thing the other, was that a year ago, where somebody had taken down a whole region accidentally. One of their admins, where, at the end of the day, there's, 2 or 3 or 4 men and women going, oh my gosh, I'm, they're SSH to a terminal, rebooting stuff, doing a check file system. They're, trying to get systems up and back by hand as fast as they can.
Mm-hmm.
It is the goal, wish, destination for a recovery like the GitHub had for their denial of service a couple of months ago, right? Where they literally had, what was it, a 8-second response time?
Yeah.
Something like that. Wasn't it 8 seconds?
Something like that. Then they did it all. Did
automatic.
I tell you this?
I remember talking about it.
Yeah. They did that all through, and it's public. I think we've linked to the article at some point, or I probably could try to find the article. They did it all through a Slack bot.
Right.
They have their own custom Slack bot that gives them access to a bunch of stuff, and they had rerouted and fixed it ridiculously fast, all just by telling the bot to do things.
Right. So human in kind of in the loop
yeah.
of being warned, oh, this is happening. Okay, fix it. And if you have all the tools. Anyway, what I'm saying is that is not the norm. the norm for most services, and probably huge services that we all use, is a whole bunch of VMs in, a couple of VMware clusters that are mostly running behind a couple load balancers that mostly work, and that, we rarely see the issues, but it's only the best of the best that are, doing hot deployments, doing zero downtime upgrades of the entire infrastructure, able to recover from anything instantly. And I mean, AWS and Azure have made that possible for so many people and so many systems that it is becoming expected. I mean, your average user these days expects the services to be online all the time and 100% uptime. But people that were early to that and haven't adapted fast enough are, still very much lagging. Anyway, this is like I said, even if this isn't true, even if every word of this is false, that the very similar things have happened and are happening today around the world in other services.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I think one of them even says, I'm glad your NDA expired. And he says, hey, 99% of the stuff I'm mentioning here was already public knowledge anyways, if you knew where to look. So
yeah, maybe I've never
fun.
looked. I didn't know. This was just a great thread. I read through it and on my phone, so I'm just kind of scrolling, but oh my gracious sakes. And just the time pressure. I'm kind of going to what we were talking about earlier of you've got just a few people and people getting burnt out. And so always having new people on that don't know all the legacy sort of why stuff exists. And, it's hard to come in to a very complicated system and learn all the gotchas. And, that causes people to be risk averse because they don't know what they're going to break. And, if you don't have a good system of unit tests or integration tests, it can be very hard to move fast. Moving fast is dependent on infrastructure and your ability to understand whether I guess I'd say two things: the ability to understand whether you've broken something and the ability to go back to a known working state if you do. So anyway, we'll post this link in here. It's just a great read.
A lot of fun. Very light. Very light one. So continuing, it's almost like this is a whole episode of just fun stuff.
Oh, you mean that was
the
fun?
Something fun.
Something fun. All right. Okay.
Yeah,
So
the something fun.
Tell me something fun.
So my something fun, aside from the other article, having an unfortunate name for use on the internet. There's a comedian. He's a comedian. I believe he's from the UK. I think he's a British comedian. His name is James Veitch. I'm probably butchering it. You probably should just cut out me trying to say his name altogether.
Looks like Veitch to me.
Veitch is a comedian, and he actually spent some time replying to spam emailers and seeing if he could string them along. And then I think he wrote a book about it, and he's got a new book out, which I haven't read, but after seeing this, so mine's a video. Maybe I'll buy it because I enjoyed this video immensely. It's a TED Talk recorded in 2016 where he basically goes through his back and forth with an email spammer.
Okay.
And kind of enjoying it, seeing how long he can string him on, but being very obviously hilarious. And his whole goal was to, by the end, somehow get the spammer to say, "Stop emailing me." Kind of to change. Anyway, so it's a YouTube video from a TED conference, a TED summit. That it's humorous and light and just a lot of fun, I thought. So that's my something fun. Go watch it.
Okay. I watched your video from last week. You're on a stretch now of things to make me go watch.
What did you think of the fabricated
video? It was
video?
Cool. I think I got to watch it again, to be honest. Like,
it was just weird.
Like, I don't think I quite got the ending. So did anyway, I don't want to spoil it. Maybe we'll talk after we're done with this. You can explain it to me anyway. All right. So my something fun is also old. If yours was a 2016, so I'm going even older than you, 2015, like 3 years ago. But it is an article from Bloomberg about what is code. And again, this kind of, I saw this a couple of years ago. I think maybe even we had talked about it, not obviously on a podcast, but this is sort of an article for people who are not developers. So it's a very, 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 very long article, almost a book. But it's just great. It's just great. I'm gonna see if I can get my kids to read it, honestly. But anyway, this was the thing that, again, as I was kind of scrolling through articles and stuff like that this weekend, I think I was also sitting around the campfire at one point. This was the thing that I thought was the coolest that kind of came back up in my radar of, I don't know if everyone that listens to this or will listen to this is a developer, but if not, you should totally go and read this article, and it'll help explain what code is and a little bit about the, just the way developers think too. I don't know. It's a great article.
Yeah. And it's even, there even are a few spots where it's a little bit dated.
Ironic for only something 2 or 3 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even that. But yeah, in general, as I'm continuing to scroll through it, reminding myself of this article.
Did their little bot pop up? Because the little clippy or whatever popped up as I was scrolling through earlier, and he's like, "Wow, that's like 1 million words a second."
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interactive-ish, I guess, too. So yeah, it's a lot of fun. Why do you pick? Talks a lot about Scrum. It holds up pretty well, but there are a few spots where it's a little dated. But yeah, great fun. Like you say, yeah,
Yeah.
it's a book.
What's they're doing mouse moves as I'm like, that's funny.
Well, when you get to the end, it actually counts up how many words you read and how much time it took. Like mine, my scrolling, because I've had it open this whole time. Oh, Bloomberg wants
Blue.
access to use your camera. Allow or block? I'm going to say block. When I scrolled, it said, you read through this in 49 minutes at 647 words a minute. That can't be true. You cheated.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Why in the world would it want to use the camera? I got the same pop-up when I just scrolled to the end.
Oh, and at the very end, this story has been annotated with corrections. Submit issues on GitHub. Huh.
Oh, look at that.
I think maybe we could submit a few issues
That's fantastic.
of the outdated bits and pieces. Anyways.
Anyway, yep, that's my something fun for the week. Go check it out. I really enjoyed that, seeing that again. And yeah, this is something good. All right, man. Call it a show.
Yep. Have a good night, John.
All right. You too. See you later.
Bye.